Today's episode is a bit different. We've curated highlights from some of our favorite conversations this year with founders, operators, and builders across finance, software, AI, and media. From the future of work and AI to the changing economics of the web and culture, these clips capture how the world is being reshaped in real time. Let's dive in. First up is David Rubenstein, co-founder of Carlyle, on why he has stayed out of partisan politics and how remaining neutral has allowed him to work across administrations and bring people from both parties together.
I stay out of politics. I don't give money to politicians. No money to anybody.
Wow.
I've never given a penny, never one penny to anybody running for president of the United States.
Why?
Well, the reasons are this. One, the way our system works is if I give $100 to somebody running for president, every mistake that person makes is going to be blamed on me. If this person comes out with a position that is antithetical to my own views, they're going to say, well, you believe in the big green deal. Well, I have nothing to do with the big green deal. I just gave this person $100. So that's one problem. Secondly, as Carlyle became bigger, if I gave $1,000 to somebody's elected president, and that president has a defense department, and they give a contract to some company that Carlyle owns, the headline could be, Rubenstein gets contract because he gave $1,000 to Joe Blow or something. I don't want to read that. Now, obviously, $1,000 is probably not the same as giving $1 million or $10 million. But rather than have anybody even think that I'm trying to buy access or I'm politically getting things, I just don't give any money to politicians.
Well, also being political automatically ostracizes 50% of constituents that could potentially want to fundraise with you. Like Michael Jordan famously was like,
Republicans buy shoes too.
Exactly.
But for example, for the last 11 or 12 years, I've hosted a program at the Library of Congress. I am the chair of the Library of Congress support board group called the Madison Council. And I chair the National Book Festival, and I'm pretty involved with the reading world and books. And I started this program to educate members of Congress about American history a bit. So once a month, I host a dinner at the Library of Congress with the Librarian of Congress, where I will interview Doris Kearns Goodwin or the equivalent about American history, one of their new books. And so I will host and pay for the dinner and the reception. Members of Congress come, Democrats and Republicans. We ask them to sit with people from the opposite party, which they rarely get to do in Washington, and sit with people from the opposite house, which they rarely get to do anymore either. And if I was an ardent Democrat or an ardent Republican, I'm not sure I could get people from the opposite party to show up at that kind of event. So by being right down the middle, I think I can get more people to show up and maybe educate people better. I've been the chairman until President Trump fired me. I was the chairman for 14 years of the Kennedy Center. I was the chairman for 4 years of the Smithsonian, and I'm chairman now of the National Gallery of Art and the Library of Congress Board. So all of these things I think I can do more effectively by not being involved in politics.
Did Trump actually fire you? I read that headline, but I was going to ask you if that's true. 14 years.
Yes. I was put on the board by George W. Bush, and President Obama reappointed me, and then President Biden reappointed me. And I know President Trump reasonably well, and I've talked to him about many different things over the years, and I think he likes me for whatever that's worth. He was not happy about something at the Kennedy Center. Somebody told him there had been a drag show there, and he was upset about that. I think some people told him that Kennedy Center honors weren't going to people that were politically conservative. Whatever the reason, he decided to make a change, and he wasn't happy. I think that President Biden had put some people on the White House staff on the Kennedy Center board right before he left office. Whatever the reasons, I don't really know. He decided to change the board. He told some people he thought that I'd already retired because I had announced I was retiring in December, and it was a big farewell party for me. But the board couldn't find somebody to replace me, so they asked me to stay a couple more years. So I was still the chair, but he says to some people that he thought I'd already retired. Whatever the case, he replaced me. So in the long history...
With himself?
Yes. In the long history of the United States government, 250 years we're about to celebrate, I'm the first person ever to be fired by a president and succeeded by him.
Next, we have Yamini Rangan of HubSpot on cutting through AI hype and grounding the moment in real customer value and outcomes.
The jobs that we all did as a marketer, as a salesperson, as a support person is now completely getting rewritten, and we can do more. And that is what is so exciting about this. While there are some parallels in terms of the ethos of like how crazy people are growing and all the conversations that are happening, this is fundamentally exciting because you can do better things with your time and you can reimagine amount of work that can be done. And it is no longer about software helping you do tasks. It is about software doing tasks to help you that then maximizes the results and the outcomes that you can achieve in the time that you spend.
I totally agree. I mean, when I was starting out in my career, like I was probably making 100 cold calls a day and writing literally 400 to 500 emails a day and copy and pasting them. And we're investors in a company called Nooks.
Yes.
It's just going to do it all.
Right.
It just does it all.
Right.
It literally just does all of that work.
Yes.
I didn't need to be doing that work.
Exactly.
What a waste of time.
Exactly.
I still needed a job to do. There was a job for me to be done there, but it was not that job.
Well, and think about this. The job to be done for you as that sales rep, and this is how I started my career as well, is to close deals and is to win business, right? Is to be in front of customers, is to understand your customer's pain point and to win them as a customer. That was the job to be done. In order to do that job, you researched companies, you cold called, you wrote a bunch of emails, you followed everything up, and then you did all of that to get a sliver of time in front of the customer. And that was like the paradigm then. And look, I've been in sales and go to market for a very long time. You know, the really incredible statistic for 20 years, I've been tracking this, which is what's the time a salesperson spends in front of a customer? And this has not moved. It's like 25%. And if you got your act together and you have great operations, you have amazing data, you have great systems, it's 27%. So you literally have like a 2% improvement if you get everything right in terms of the time in front of customer. And everything else is the prep that you're talking about. It's the research. And then, you know, when I first moved on to operations, I would like literally beg the sales team to be like, can you please complete your notes in the system? Because the next person needs a better handoff. So that is changing. And it's so cool. It's so exciting to see what, you know, companies are doing. You know, HubSpot is completely there. And that's what we're trying to imagine for our customers.
Like, I agree. I think this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like at the time of crypto.
Yes.
Or at the time of COVID.
Yes.
Everybody also thought it was a very real thing.
Yeah.
And in the, you know, the days of everyone being remote and it's going to last forever and this digital demand is going to sustain for decades to come.
Yeah.
The problem is, which is similar to now, whether it's true or false, if you're wrong, if it's true and you're wrong and you didn't make the right investments at that point, you're screwed.
Yes.
Meaning like if you're growing 100% at $1 billion base and you're just like, oh no, this isn't going to last. And you're like, and it does last.
Yes.
You just left like hundreds of millions of dollars on the table.
Exactly.
Right. Or like even these big tech companies now, like Meta and Google and Microsoft, the investments that they're making in infrastructure are insane. Like insane. It's insane. Like we've never seen dollars spent like this.
Exactly.
But like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Like what if they're wrong?
Yeah.
What if this is maybe not even enough investment?
Yeah.
And Microsoft decided not to do it and Meta and Amazon did.
Yeah.
Like they missed the whole thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so
this is why it's hard. This is so hard.
So I think like, you know, one of the things I feel is there's a lot of hot takes and hype and all of these. And every cycle, whether it turns out to be real or not, has like hot takes and every day, like some crypto this and Web3 that and now AI this, right? It really comes down to customer value. And you got to go back to, you know, it doesn't matter what all this technology, you know, talk does. You got to go back to who's your customer? What is their job to be done? And can you improve that and add value? That's that's how we look at it. We have like a North Star, which is solve for the customer, SFTC. We talk about this all the time. And then it comes back to forget all the hype and forget all the cool technology. Can we take a neat, feature of AI and make it a necessary feature in AI? if we can prove to ourselves with customer usage and repeat value that we deliver, then there's something in the cycle. If it's not, if it's the cool thing that you do today and then next week it's like churned and everybody is left, then there is no value. So I think you got to like ground yourself in customer value and truth. And if you do that, then you can sift through it. But, at the beginning of the cycle, you just have to use some kind of pattern recognition to say, is this going to work or not, and make a bet. And you cannot be wrong. And, that's what happens. Like I would say that, SAP, I used to work at SAP, and, back in those days, there was a lot of question of, is cloud real? Will on-premise ever go away, and is cloud real? And would, CIOs ever trust data that's not in their data center and is in some kind of public cloud? And these were real debates there. Now it's not the same thing. I think all of us, who've been established for a while, or if it's a startup, we know and see the value of AI, and we're kind of like really focused on what is that value for customers.
Next is Ben Chestnut of MailChimp, reflecting on how fast technology cycles have sped up and why he's relieved he's no longer running a tech company in the middle of the AI wave.
I am so glad I'm not in business.
Are you?
Yeah.
That's very atypical from what I hear.
Really? Because AI is disrupting everything. And then as soon as there's an AI disrupting something, it gets disrupted. And you know how? So early on in MailChimp, I realized in the tech industry, we needed to reinvent ourselves every 3 years. Customers' tastes change, and their technology needs changed every 3 years. I had to keep MailChimp very nimble. I would never commit to anything that would take longer than, let's say, 1 year, because then I couldn't be able to turn on a dime. So, that worked for like the first 10 years. And then like you're at year 15, it's like, it's accelerating. I can feel it accelerating, and my company's getting bigger and harder to turn. I have to start making bets. And these are not big bets. These are just, medium-sized bets for what I can afford. And then now with it accelerating even faster, I don't see how you can keep up with that. And this is coming from a guy, we invested in AI really early, very early. Big data, all of that stuff. Using NVIDIA like 2008.
Wow.
We were very early in that world because we were processing abuse data, email data, spam data, right? We needed to protect our servers. So we were doing it for abuse prevention. And then we got into like email design, copywriting with AI, and then I sold. And now I look back and just say, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm not a CEO of a tech company anymore.
At Harvey, Winston Weinberg is focused on the hardest problems in legal, building AI that can survive years of model advances by earning trust first.
How many companies are there that are going after this AI for legal?
I think I saw a market map a long time ago, and I had to zoom in like a lot.
Yeah,
because it was just text. But I'll let Winston opine on this one. But it's the markets. It's not just like there's going to be one legal tech company. It's not like one market necessarily, right? There's segments of that market that are really important, impactful, and a good place to start. And I think like where Harvey is, which is big top law firms, big enterprise in-house legal teams, that's like the right entry point. And that's a pretty interesting one because it's very collaborative. And so I'm sure there's going to be, AI for legal in a variety of flavors, obviously for lots of parts of the market. But to me, at least, this is kind of the biggest, meatiest one because it really drives everything else. There's trust, there's brand, there's reference customers. That's like the place.
Yeah, I think like one thing that I try to think about a lot is just like, what can the models do in like 10 years, right? And how do you build a company around that, right? And, the term mode, et cetera, all these things. But I think like one interesting piece about the kind of like, let's go back to like the Microsoft Activision merger, right? This is work that is at the complete tail end of the models can just automate this. In other words, if we're in a world where GPT X whatever can just automate that, most companies are gone. Like, right? Like, we'll just be honest, right? And so I think that what's really interesting about going after that type of work is it is incredibly messy, is incredibly context specific. The accuracy of it really, really matters. And so we are trying to basically put all of our effort into that because we think that that is not something that is going to be solved by the next generation of models. I would say that like when I think about competitors, I think that the largest competitor for us is just not moving fast enough, like by far. I think that indirectly, you want to make sure that you are building a business that is going to survive the next 10 years of model releases, right? And that's how I think about the product. That's how I think about GTM. That's how I think about basically everything. Is that the correct play? I think it will be in a while. But we've had a lot of revenue growth. To be honest, we'd have much more if we made it self-serve and we kind of did a different type of route. I think that stuff ends up getting kind of cannibalized by the models.
When Glean was growing in its early days, there was so much pressure on that team to self-serve it, just give it away, right?
Yeah.
And they did it the hard way, similar to how you're doing it. Tops down, enterprise, get deep into the organization. And it's paying off really well for them.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because we have a very like land and expand motion too. And so we have this weird, like we have PLG. It's just you have to get into the organization for the PLG to start. And, I think there's a lot of advantages to that. And I think like the nice thing too, and we talked about this kind of like early on, is we have the option because we have Fortune 500 and we talked about these like 3 parties collaborating. You have internal virality. In other words, like at a law firm, you have different lawyers, spreading it to each other across different groups. In an enterprise, we'll sell something to the legal team and then they'll tell the tax team about it as well, right? And so you have virality there internally. And then you have external virality of if you have a bunch of law firms using our product, they tell their clients. Remember I said that they mostly were referrals for the enterprise customers that we had in the beginning, and vice versa, where the enterprises will tell their law firms like, hey, like we're doing a deal. Are you using Harvey? We are, right? And so I think that's another way to kind of go about expansion. It's just slower in the beginning, but I think you can still do PLG really fast. It's just a different kind.
I think the other part here is really trust.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, because if you sort of release something into the ether where people can self-serve, it's bottoms up adopted, whether it's in a big company or a small company, but it's not hardened yet, and it's not fully trusted yet, and you haven't been sitting next to the customer using it, you're potentially going to miss out, because if you get something wrong, especially in something as critical as legal, that's kind of a third rail. And so I think that the approach here is really smart, because you're going to build something that is hardened, enterprise grade, works super well, and then you can kind of let it spread on its own over time. And that here and with Glean, I think that's the right way to do it.
Garrett Lord explains why the next gains in AI come from expert human data and how frontier models rely on domain specialists to train, validate, and correct complex reasoning.
So for example, OpenAI or whatever, one of these labs would come to you and their model is spitting out some algorithm, something around some scientific discovery, and they need somebody to look at that and basically train it and say, is this right? Is this wrong? They need somebody with a specific set of expertise to basically look at whatever that model is producing within a given domain and then ask the expert.
Yeah. One thing like has a great, very simple story, which is like, people talk about agents all the time, right? Like agents requires an ability to follow step-by-step instructions, or fundamental idea behind agents is you understand like reasoning, and the reasoning choices need to be correct. So if you ask any one of the large frontier models questions and you ask it to break down its thinking of its step-by-step instructions, too oftentimes these models are not getting the answers correct. So when you think about a model, it's like you have compute, you have algorithms, and you have like data. Those are like the 3 things that matter with models. Everyone's applying a ton of compute, everyone's constantly evolving algorithms, and people are obviously chasing after one another in terms of algorithmic prowess. And then you have data, and data is what really fuels the gains on what are called the post-training side of the house. Post-training is human data. And what we do is, the world's evolved from like generalists, where you were predominantly leveraging like international skilled, lower cost labor, taking advantage of an arbitrage between that, to now these models have kind of sucked up the entirety of the entire corpus of the internet and every book and video. They've also sucked up and they've gotten good enough where like generalists are no longer needed. The models are actually better than generalists. And so what they need is they need experts. They need experts in accounting and law and medicine. They need experts in coding. They need experts in STEM domains like physics, math, chemistry. Designing a network that's focused on experts and treating those experts well and making it an amazing community experience with high retention where people can, we're connecting to like badges on your profile and leaderboards by school. We have access to millions of experts. So these experts, it's pretty cool. You can make like 60, 80, 100. I think our average bill rate's over $100 an hour, like, $125 an hour applying your expertise in the domain that you're studying. You're getting a master's in accounting and you're getting paid $100 an hour to provide data and correct models. We're doing really also wild things like, audio, like a ton of audio work, like these models. I won't get too far into it, but, in the areas of trajectories and, tool use and text data and coding data, like Handshake has, in our opinion, like one of the largest networks of experts that are captive and trust Handshake. And so we're trying to build a great experience for them to produce data for the labs.
And can you just walk me through okay, they find an expert on math or science. What is that expert actually doing?
An average frontier lab, of which we work with 6 of them, most of the frontier labs, let's pick something like mathematics. So they all care about, and let's merge mathematics with educational design. So an analogous type of project that we would do for a lab is actually explaining and breaking down the decisions around how you would teach a particular math problem to a student. So you'd be applying mathematics experts who would actually agree on the step-by-step, like, here's how I would solve the problem. And you'd merge that with educational design PhD around whether you like option A or option B more. And you might even get more specific, like you might provide like hints, or you might provide data around students in the Southeast prefer this educational design pattern, whereas students in the Northwest prefer this educational design pattern. So it's a public paper. So you go in, if you're a physics PhD, you break the model. You identify a reasoning error in a step-by-step instruction flow. You correct the reasoning flow, and then you provide the ground truth right answer. And then they do things like, pass at K1, pass at K3, pass at K10, which is like, does the model, because they're non-deterministic, does the model get it right 1 out of 3 times, 3 out of 3 times, get it right 1 out of 10 times? So we'll actually go in and provide distributions of data around how many times is the model passing this question, here's what the right answer is. And that would be an example of like a physics PhD focusing on like their area of research, asking, questions the model cannot do today, and providing the actual right answers. Most of the data we produce, if you were to read it, like, you could lock me in jail for like 30 days and ask me to solve one of these physics problems. Like,
it's not happening.
You can't even I can't even barely read the type of data that we create because, it's really experts in PhDs.
Next, Aidan Gomez reflects on co-authoring the Transformer paper and why an open, scalable architecture sparked the wave of AI progress that followed.
Listed as one of the co-authors of what has now become maybe one of the most consequential papers in our industry.
Totally, yeah.
Obviously, I don't think you had any idea then. I don't think Google had any idea then. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have given it away.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, I mean, would it have been big if Google didn't give it away? Would it have blown up like this, right?
You're saying
a secret.
You're saying, would Google have known would Google have created the ChatGPT moment?
Yeah, exactly. Or would have the academic community created a different architecture under a different name that looked very similar and felt very similar, that carried the weight instead. And so maybe Google had its proprietary transformer model, which nobody could use because it was IP and, it didn't become very popular. But the rest of the world created something slightly different, which, had enough of the same properties to drive all the stuff that we've seen over the past 10 years. I think that's probably more likely. Because at the time, there were like the transformer was built off of a set of ideas like, what was it called? ByteNet, WaveNet, whatever it was, like Seek to Seek. There were these series of papers which had these ideas of autoregressive models, which were much more scalable for training. And the ideas were out there in the ether, and we just sort of pulled them together in a particular arrangement. I think if we hadn't have done it, someone else would have within the next 12 to 18 months. So if Google didn't tell anyone about it, kept it secret, I think someone outside would have created something very similar under a different name.
Why do you think that?
Because all those ideas were like in the ether.
It was just building towards that.
Yeah, totally. Like it was necessary. Like something like the transformer had to be tried by someone. It's just that, we were the ones that tried it first. And we got enough eyes on it to catalyze this snowball. And once it started rolling, once people started.
This is once you wrote the paper.
Yeah, once we released it, published it, NeurIPS, it got enough eyes and momentum that the community figured the rest out, right? Like we sort of like started the seed, like, packed a little snowball and then gave it a little nudge down a hill. And then the community just poured in and started implementing all the different frameworks, testing this thing on all the different benchmarks. And the community carried the work. It was less like us at Google pushing this thing forward, showing the world what it could do. It was everybody else taking this little seed and growing it into what the transformer is today.
And in your words, like, what is the core unique insight in that paper that propelled so much of this forward?
A focus on efficiency. So it was a very simple architecture, like very minimal. And it was extremely well suited to scaling it up across many GPUs. At the time we built it, like many GPUs was tens of GPUs, right? Like that was like.
And what's many GPUs today?
Oh, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands. In a couple of years, maybe millions. But yeah, so like the core insight was, hey, we're going to need to scale this thing up. And for us, that meant instead of training on one GPU, we would like to train on 32. And so let's make sure we build a training framework and an architecture that's compatible with that. It makes that easy, makes it efficient. And then it just so turned out that, that was a very important property for the future of machine learning because everyone started scaling up models. And so the models that scaled the best dominated, and that turned out to be the transformer.
On this next segment, Michelle Zatlyn of Cloudflare breaks down how AI is putting the web's business model at risk and why content creators may need new ways to get paid as AI crawlers reshape how information is consumed. I saw Amazon yelling at Perplexity for using, and you are going to be able to explain it better than I can. So first explain it for us and then tell me what you think about it. But basically yelling at Perplexity for their agents doing shopping on people's behalfs, basically, within Amazon.
Yes.
And Cloudflare has a role in all of this. So let's put the Cloudflare role aside because I do think it just makes you informed about the topic.
Yes.
So tell us about the topic. I think it's very timely right now. And then what you think about it.
For sure. Well, it's interesting. Okay, so AI, a big deal, like huge deal, so fun, changing everything. Okay. And that's not going away. And if you just look, like if you look at like the invention of the internet and then the invention of AI or kind of the adoption, it's going 5 times faster than like mobile. Like it's just, if it feels like it's everywhere and happening all at once, it's because it's faster than things we've seen in the last 30 years. And it makes sense. So I think the best analogy for AI is like the invention of electricity. And could you imagine when they first brought out the light bulb to how you think about electricity today, where it's just everything, like even this podcasting system we're using and how you can now watch this stuff online. It's like, it's all tied back to the invention of electricity. So AI is going to be the same. It's just going to transcend every single thing. Okay. So that's amazing and exciting. So what's interesting, and I think that but it puts the business model at the web at risk. And what do I mean by that? So the way that all of these AI services work is they go crawl the web for all this content to feed their LLMs with to be able to go give you the answers. Now, before AI existed, what happened is if you wanted something, you go search on a browser, pick your browser of choice, Safari, Chrome, Mozilla, for those of you doing Mozilla, and you see something, you click on it, and you go to the website to learn about it or to buy something. And there was actually a whole business model behind the scenes, actually, like where it's like how those content creators got reimbursed for these sorts of things, for creating the content, the idea. Like there's a whole business model there. But if the AI crawlers go crawl the web and get all the content, when you go to your Perplexity or the OpenAI or the chat, like whoever ChatGPT or whatever you're using, do you go back and look at the original source? No, you just read it right there. The original source isn't getting compensated. And so if you're a content creator and you're no longer getting paid for what you're creating, what's your incentive to keep creating it? There isn't anything. And so the business model of the web is currently at risk with like the rise of AI. And so AI is not going away. It's a good thing, but there's got to be a new business model. And so part of the idea, and this is what we're working on, is saying, okay, how can we help? And part of it is, okay, if you are that content creator, that publisher, that media company, should the AI crawler be able to come crawl all your articles and put them in their LLMs? Or should you have to pay them for that? The media companies say you need to pay me if you're going to use my content in your LLMs. I think that's a reasonable sort of business model. But then how do you do the exchange? And so there's a lot of technology behind the scenes that's happening where the groups are coming together, both the AI crawlers, the media companies, all the content creators, and then the technologists are coming to say, okay, can we create a new business model where as the AI crawlers come crawl the content, I can either say, no, you can't take my content, and they respect that. Like if someone says, don't crawl my content, whoever's coming to try to crawl it should respect that. Or they can say, actually crawl my content, but then this is what, for this fee, I want you to pay this for it. Some sort of exchange of value that way. And so it's pretty cool. We'll go through all the details, but there's Coinbase and us helped launch a new protocol online called the X402 code, which basically says, yeah, you can take this content if you pay me something for it. And then it's like, okay, can you use something like cryptocurrency to help be the value
It's like
store?
a virtual gate for the agent to then pay the toll.
Well, I don't like those words because gate and toll seem negative. It's more of a business model of saying you're coming to take this content that I created. You can take it as long as you pay me something for it. And maybe some people say, I'm free. My content's free. Some people will choose that. Others might say, hey, it's 25 cents. And other people say, no, this content's really valuable. That's how the web works today in many ways. There's an exchange of value. It's interesting in this new model. How do you go forward? And so I think there's a path forward there. There's a lot of, it's interesting. The crypto rise the last few years has allowed the rails to be able to create the payments, the micro payments, because some of these payments are going to be small. Like they're not going to be checks you're sending the small businesses or the content creators. But this idea of I do think we want original content. I think that's something the world wants and craves and needs. Those people should get paid. The AI crawlers should be able to get it as long as they're agreeing to the business model.
And what's Cloudflare's role in that?
Well, it's interesting. So we have about 20% of the web using our service today. So we have millions of publishers using our service. And this is kind of where we help see it. And you can I've heard spending time with customers, back to my thing is they've said, hey, look, I can see that on a daily basis, the AI crawlers are coming to my site 2,500 times to get my content every day. Now, there's a lot of wastage right now because it's moved so quickly. But by the way, in cloud computing, someone's paying for every request that comes to your site, whether it's a human or an AI crawler. Like that company has to pay for that request back to their cloud provider. And so it's expensive. There's just a lot of expense happening from all of this kind of extra crawling. And they're like, by the way, they're coming and they're calling me 25 cents and I'm seeing my traffic down because they're not sending traffic back. So my costs are up on the infrastructure side, but I'm not seeing the eyeballs because the eyeballs stay within the AI company's chatbot. So they're frustrated. And so they kept saying, now, our world is pre kind of all of this was part of what our customers hire us to do is to do cybersecurity for them. We make the internet faster for our customers, more secure and more reliable. And so our customers were saying, okay, they already hire us to do cybersecurity. We help stop all sorts of online attacks, which by the way are at all-time highs. It's scary. We help protect employees who are getting phished, also all-time high, scary. But this idea of okay, there's been this rise of bots the last 8 years, like before AI, just tons of bots roaming the internet trying to take content, do malicious things. And so bot management is like a big term in cybersecurity land. But really what this is actually, I want to know who's coming to my site, and I want to be able to have access control. I want to have control as the content owner. Should that bot be able to access my site or not? And so we just help facilitate that. We help give the visibility. Here's everyone coming to your site. Is it a search engine? Is it a bot? Is it human? The visibility. And then you have the control to decide, yes, allowed, yes, not allow. And then now the next part is actually, yes, allow, but pay me this, and help be the technology that can help facilitate it. I think it's pretty cool. And I don't know how it's all going to turn out, but I love that these hard problems that are going to be a big part of the next 10 years of the web, I think it's going to be a huge part of the next web, that we get a seat at the table to help figure out the solution.
To close out this special year-end episode, Evan Spiegel explains how AI may finally make augmented reality glasses useful, turning them into a collaborative, portable workstation instead of just another device.
When I was a kid, I thought wearing glasses sucked. And then at some point, it became my new normal at age 43. But, I own so many different specialized pair of glasses. So what you want is, if you go to the trouble of putting them on, the world has to become better. So you have to see some digital artifact. You have to see some information. You have to see something. So it has to be immediately better.
And I think what you just said totally resonates with our experience, which is you have to focus on the functionality and the utility. I think a lot of people, even including us in the early days, right, we put a camera on a pair of glasses, but the value just wasn't there, right? It's not 10 times better than just taking a picture with your phone. And so I think we learned a lot about that. And I agree with you that the value has to be there. For the first time in human history, computing will be shared instead of single player. Like today, every time we use a computer, we're using it alone. Every time we use our phone, we're using it alone. And I think the promise of glasses is that we can all look at the same thing, interact with the same thing, build the same thing together, just like we collaborate, in front of a whiteboard or something like that. And that's a big deal for computing.
Let me just follow up on that for a second. This idea of the form factor being the glasses, like maybe it was never about the glasses, but the delivery mechanism for how you can get maybe a localized model to be able to do more interesting things, to Bing's point of like, what are you projecting out of the glasses? We've been trying for 15 plus years to get these glasses to work. Was it maybe, I don't know. I don't want to like overpaint AI as the panacea to everything, but in some way, like, wasn't that a pretty key unlock for you to think about ways that you can use this form factor that are like super interesting?
I think it will add a lot of value because the way that people are using their computer is changing. So I think that's probably the biggest role that AI will play in accelerating glasses, that instead of needing to sit and operate your computer all day long, AI is going to operate your computer for you, and you're going to, observe AI, monitor AI, make sure it's on the right track. But generally, you're not going to need to spend your life operating the computer in the same way. So I think that accelerates glasses and shifts more of that time from like workstation time to being able to get out there, walk around the world, do what you love to do. And of course, bring AI with you, bring your workstation with you, but not in the same way that you think about operating your workstation today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super interesting.
I got a daughter now in her early 30s. She and a best friend, this has been a hop for me as a parent, when they were both about 14 and we were on vacation together, she and her best friend were sitting side by side, both on their laptops, chatting with each other. Never turned face to face. And this generation is different than mine. You say collaboration. So at 7 a.m., you get up in the morning, your specs are sitting on the side table. When do you put them on and when do you collaborate?
Honestly, I don't think you need to put them on until you get on the train or something like that and you're on your way to work. I think,
you stick them in your pocket and you pull.
Yeah, you stick them in your pocket, you pull them out, and then you'll have, a giant 100+ inch screen workstation with you on the road. You're getting ready for work. You're going to be able to multitask in a totally different way. Right now, one of the things your phone really struggles with is multitasking, right? It's a single app framework. And that really, I think reduces your ability to get things done. So one of the reasons why desktops are still so important is that multitasking. So I think you get the benefit of that on the go in a really meaningful way. So on your way to work, you're already getting stuff done, getting your day organized. I think that's really powerful.
We know that the digital generation believes multitasking is a better lifestyle. So I've never heard anybody talking about AR as primarily a better way to multitask. That's kind of interesting. Because there's a limit to your field of view of how many different tasks you can get up there simultaneously.
Today on the phone, yeah, but with augmented reality, I mean, your workstation is essentially infinite.
So you put digital items out in your field of view and you multitask by somehow enabling each of the digital items?
Yeah, that's one way to think about it. I mean, it's just the way today people have on their desk multiple monitors, right? Because they're trying to get stuff done across a bunch of different applications. I think, glasses provide a much more fluid way to do that and the ability to just pick it up and take it with you anywhere.
How many of your 10 trillion employees have 2 monitors on their desk?
We only have 5,000 team members. So, and we serve a community now of almost a billion people with just 5,000 folks. So quite a few have 2 monitors.
Really?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. And even the people who are coding, not just artists?
Oh, for sure. And, and at a bare minimum, one huge monitor, right? That would be impossible to take with you. I mean, that's one of the big frustrations I have. If I want to look at a piece of creative, if I want to, really dig into, video we're working on, to do that on your phone and to expect the quality to be good from that tiny screen is almost impossible.
That's it for our Best of 2025 recap. You can find the full conversations with each of today's guests on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. This podcast is a Kleiner Perkins production, and I'm Joubin. Thanks for listening.